I have your brain scanned and permanently backed up in case something terrible happens to you, which it's just about to.
So I'm going to take the area where the bead is mostly in. I'm going to find that screw hole there, and I'm going to take my front bead lock. The bead locks are kind of sharp on one side and rounded on the other. We're going to place the rounded side out. I really don't think it matters, but it you know, aesthetically it's going to look good. I'm going to place the bead lock over the tire area here, over the bead, in the place where it is seated down the most inside of the bead groove on the tire. We're going to go ahead and insert one screw. Do not tighten it down. All we're doing is putting the screw in there, and we're going to go about half the way in. I'm going to use my fingers and I'm going to hold that down so that it holds that bead into the locked position, and I'm going to put this screw in about halfway. Then I'm going to peer down in through here, and I'm going to go over to the next screw hole, and I'm going to push it down with my finger a little bit, and I'm just going to use my Allen wrench and just kind of poke that bead a little bit, because it's mostly in there, but I just poked it to make sure it's sitting down. And I'm going to go ahead and put my next screw in. And again, do not tighten them down, because you're going to end up bending that bead lock ring. And that's not what you want to do. Right now we're just making sure that we get the screws in and we get that bead pushed down into that groove all the way around. And just do it one screw at a time. And again, you can read online at maybe at rccrawler.com. Maybe there's better ways to do this. But as you start going around, it actually seats in fairly easily. If it doesn't seat in and you kind of see it curled up a little bit, just use a little Allen wrench and go in there and just kind of push it into place. And it does have to be seated in properly all the way around, otherwise your tire is not going to build properly. And each time I put a screw in, I'm just going to make sure that that bead, whoop, there it goes, it just slid all the way around. Just slid in all the way around for me. Got two more screws to put in here. And then we're going to go ahead and tighten them down once these two are in. And we're not just going to tighten one all the way down. We got to go around in somewhat of a star pattern, or, you know, close to it, so that we don't bend the bead lock. And this whole time you're going to have to keep an eye and make sure that none of that bead is getting pinched up underneath, because if you do that, again, it's not going to put the tire on properly, and you could pull your bead out while you're driving, and even worse off than that, you can bend one of your precious bead locks, which we don't want to do. So I'm going to go around now on these and put them about 90% in. There's still going to be a little gap, which I'll show you here in a second. Now I'm going to peer back around through here, make sure none of the rubber is being pinched, and again I'm just kind of looking down through here and see if the camera can pick it up, but you can see just a little bit of a gap under here, and they're not all the way completely tight. So now I'm going to go ahead and go all the way down just until it touches. You don't need to tighten them, but just till it touches. I'm going to go around in my star pattern for sure now and do that. And each time that I tighten one down, I want to make sure that there's no gap between the bead lock and the wheel. And if there is, that means that you've got some rubber pinched under there. You're going to want to take it back off and start over. But it looks like this one went on real nice. And we have our front bead lock on. The rear one is going to go on pretty much the same, except for there's a couple little things I want to show you that I found help. For some reason it's a little tougher to get the second bead lock on than it is the first. Okay. Again, one more time, I'm going to peer around the bottom in there and make sure that there's no gaps and everything is down nice and solid. Now we're going to move around to the back, and you see how the foam rubber kind of poked up there. We're going to have to get rid of that so it's not over the wheel and interfering with our bead going down into the bead lock. So there are a couple different ways to do it. First off, I just take my finger and go around in here, and that kind of just tuck it around out of the way. You want to make sure you're not folding it over itself, just kind of moving it out of the way. You can also do it like this, just to make sure that it's all out of the way. Let's kind of see if we can get in there. You can see that's what it looks like, and you can see that the gap where the bead goes in is not covered with foam rubber, because that'll really screw you up. I messed around with this a little bit, and for some reason this backside likes to pucker up a little bit, and I think it's because we're tight on the front. And what I found is there's a little bit of spit on here. It really makes it go together a lot easier. Not that you really have to, I just like licking things, I guess. But you're going to want to get it on the underside. I probably wouldn't use any oils or anything, but you know, spit will dissolve, or it will actually evaporate. If you use oils on there, it won't. So I'm going to go ahead and wet that up. No comments. And just like we did on the front, we're going to take that bead and work it down into the groove. And it's almost impossible, at least on these tires, to get too much of that bead all the way worked in. So what I'm going to do, ooh, this one's going in pretty good. You know what, I'm going to leave it right there and not mess with it. You can take a look here, and you can see that that bead's seated around on 2.5, almost 3 screw areas. So I'm just going to take that and put it down, take my bead lock, just like we did on the front, and put it over there, and go ahead and insert my first screw. Again, the most important thing is to make sure that that bead fully seats, and that really is important. Going to go ahead and put the screw in. Going to put it about halfway down and do just like we did on the other one. Going to look over to the next one, make sure that that bead is in. Put the second screw in. Going to work that bead in. These are beer tires. You got 5 of them to do. So I'm going to suggest, if you're of age, that you get yourself some beer. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now that we got 3 of the screws in, or half of them, that bead just set right down inside. You don't want to, I think one of the secrets here, and I can be wrong, I'm just trying to isolate what I'm doing and what makes it do. I think just keeping those screws fairly loose but tight enough to hold that bead down inside the groove. As you go around, it just seems to want to slip in there pretty easily once you get a couple screws in. Alright, we're almost done here. Okay, there we go. Okay, take a look around here. You're going to want to make sure that there's no gap in between the bead lock and the wheel. Last final step, just to make sure everything's good, is to take this and peel it back. Make sure everything is on there good. Do that on the front and the back. And then if you want to straighten out your foams, you can do that. And you've built yourself a tire. Go ahead and do that 4 more times. The next step here is step number 54 is a difficult one, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take us, but we're going to go ahead and drop our 5th tire onto the little spare tire carrier so that the little nut sticks out there, little screw. Then we're going to take our part number 46E-4, and there's a little hex spot in here, and we're going to take our nylock nut. We're going to go ahead and press it down inside there so it stays. Sometimes it's a trick to get those in. It looks like this one's not going to stay in there on its own, so we're going to have to hold it in. I'm going to go ahead and put it over our little spare tire rack here and screw it on. So that it holds our spare tire. See? How hillbilly is that? Gotta love it. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to step number 55, which is going to be to put the tires, the wheels, and the hexes and whatnot on. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out my stuff, and we'll get this going. Step number 55 brings us to putting on the wheels and the tires. First thing we're going to do is to build our hex nuts. And for the hex nut, it's the little metal one here. Focus. There we go. And there is a little teeny tiny hole in here that we're going to use and put a set screw in. So we're going to dig the set screw out. Put it on our wrench. I hate these things, they're so small. Just like so. It doesn't call for Loctite, but I'm just going to put a real small amount on there. I might regret that later. But got a small amount on there, and we're going to go ahead and insert that into our hex. Then we're going to grab a cross pin, and we're going to slide that through the hole in the axle shaft here and put it on so it's even. And then there's a little cross pattern inside the hex, and we're going to align that up with the pin so that it drops on. Somewhere here we'll line it up. It's not wanting to go on. There we go. And you're going to drop that down on, and then you're going to tighten up the set screw. Once that's on and tight, we're going to go ahead and lay the tire down on top, spin it till it drops down onto the hex, and then install the wheel nut. And it uses a nylock nut, and a little bit tight getting on the first time. But go ahead and snug that up. Don't over tighten it. You just want to put it on there till it hits, and then give it a little snug. And then we're going to put on the little wheel cover. And that's just going to screw onto the end of the axle stud there. So go ahead and put that on and just screw it in. Just like so. You're going to feel it bottom out, and just make sure it's on snug. That's what they're going to look like when they're on. Go ahead and repeat that process till you have all 4. Now we have a truck with wheels and tires. We're getting pretty close here. The next step is going to be to install the body posts. So I'm going to dig those out, and we'll get rocking on those.
Do not touch the operational end of the device. Do not look directly at the operational end of the device. Do not submerge the device in liquid, even partially.